Maybe you understand English. You can watch English videos, listen to songs, follow conversations, and understand what people are saying. You may even read English without too much difficulty. But then someone asks you a simple question, and suddenly nothing. You know the words. You understand the question. You know exactly what you want to say. But when you try to speak, your mind goes completely blank. You start searching for the right words. You think about grammar. You wonder if your sentence is correct. You translate from your native language into English. And by the time you finally find the words, the conversation has already moved on. Maybe this has happened to you. You can understand movies, podcasts, and articles in English. But when you have to speak, your English suddenly feels completely different. You may ask yourself, why can I understand English but not speak it? Why do I know so many words, but cannot use them when I need them? Is something wrong with my English? The answer is no. There is probably nothing wrong with your English. This is one of the most common problems English learners experience. You may understand much more English than you can actively speak. And that difference is completely normal. But if you want to become a confident speaker, you need to understand why this happens. So today we are going to look at the real reasons why you can understand English but struggle to speak it. We will talk about the difference between listening and speaking, passive and active vocabulary, translation, overthinking, grammar, repetition, confidence, and practical ways to activate the English you already know. So let's begin with the most important idea. Understanding English and speaking English are two different abilities. They are connected, but they are not the same. Imagine that you know a city very well. You recognize the streets. You know where the buildings are. You can look at a map and understand exactly where you are. But does that automatically mean you can drive through the city confidently? Not necessarily. Understanding the city and actively driving through it are different skills. English works in a similar way. When you listen, English comes toward you. You hear the sounds, recognize the words, connect them to meaning, and understand the message. This is recognition. But when you speak, the direction is completely different. Now you have an idea inside your mind. You must choose the words, organize them, create a sentence, pronounce the words, and do everything quickly while another person is waiting for your answer. That is a completely different mental task. For example, someone says, I went to the supermarket yesterday. You may understand this immediately. But now imagine that you want to say, I went to the supermarket yesterday because I needed to buy some food. Now your brain has to retrieve the words, organize the sentence, choose the correct grammar, and pronounce everything in real time. This is why you can understand a sentence when someone else says it but struggle to create a similar sentence yourself. You recognize the language, but you have not yet trained your brain to produce it quickly. Many learners spend years listening, reading, watching videos, learning vocabulary, and studying grammar. All of these activities are useful, but sometimes they spend almost all their time receiving English. They listen. They read. They watch. They understand. But they rarely produce English. Then they become confused. I have been learning English for years. Why can I still not speak? The problem may be that you have trained one side of the skill much more than the other. Think about going to the gym. If you train your legs every day but never train your upper body, your legs may become strong. But you cannot expect your upper body to become equally strong without training it. English is similar. If you spend years listening, your listening can become very strong. But speaking needs its own training. Speaking is not simply the result of collecting more English. Speaking is a skill that must be practiced directly. Now, this does not mean listening is unimportant. Listening is incredibly important. It gives you vocabulary, grammar patterns, pronunciation, and natural English. But listening alone does not automatically become speaking. You need to take what you understand and gradually make it available for your own use. This brings us to another important idea: passive English and active English. Imagine you hear someone say, "I've been thinking about changing my job." You understand the sentence immediately. But later someone asks you, "Have you been thinking about changing anything in your life?" You want to use the same expression. You know it. You have heard it. You understood it. But suddenly you cannot remember how to say it. You may say, "Yes, think, I want to change something." You understand the expression, but you cannot retrieve it quickly. This is the difference between recognizing English and retrieving English. When you listen, the language comes to you. When you speak, you must find the language yourself. And finding the right words quickly is a skill. It needs training. There are different levels of knowing a word. First, you may not recognize it at all. Then you may see it while reading and understand it. Later, you may hear it and recognize it. But the highest level is being able to produce it naturally when you need it. This is why your passive vocabulary can be much larger than your active vocabulary. Your passive vocabulary includes words you understand when you hear or read them. Your active vocabulary includes words you can actually use when speaking or writing. For example, you may understand the word exhausted. If someone says, "I was completely exhausted after work," you understand the meaning. But when you talk about your own day, you may only say, "I was very tired." There is nothing wrong with tired. But perhaps you know exhausted, and simply cannot retrieve it naturally yet. With practice, that passive word can become active. So sometimes you do not need thousands of new words. You need to practice using the words you already know. Imagine having a room full of useful tools. You have a hammer, a screwdriver, scissors, and a measuring tape. But every time you need something, you must search through a huge box. You know the tool is there, but you cannot find it quickly. This is what sometimes happens with vocabulary. You know the word is somewhere inside your memory, but you cannot find it quickly enough during a conversation. The solution is not always to collect more tools. Sometimes you need to organize and practice using the tools you already have. This is what speaking practice does. It makes your brain faster at finding and using the English you already know. Another major problem is overthinking. Many learners try to create perfect sentences before speaking. Imagine you want to say, "I went to the market this morning." A natural speaker may simply say it, but an English learner may think, "Is went correct? Should I use have gone? Is this grammar correct? Will my pronunciation be understood?" While you are thinking about all of this, the moment to speak disappears. Of course, grammar is important, but grammar should eventually become a tool that helps you communicate. It should not become a security check that you must pass before every sentence. Imagine trying to walk while thinking about every movement your legs make. Lift your left foot. Move it forward. Put it down. Now lift your right foot. Walking would become difficult. But after enough practice, walking becomes automatic. Speaking can develop in the same way. First, you may need to think carefully about grammar. But with repetition, common sentence patterns become more automatic. For example, I want to. I need to. I have to. I'm trying to. I'm not sure if. I don't know how to. These are simple structures, but they are incredibly useful. You can say, I want to improve my English. I want to speak more confidently. I want to understand movies without subtitles. The structure stays the same. Only the information changes. Natural speaking often works this way. You do not create every sentence from zero. You use familiar patterns and fill them with new ideas. And if you can understand English but struggle to speak it, remember this. You are not starting from zero. You already have an English foundation. You may understand many words, recognize grammar patterns, and follow conversations. The goal now is to build a bridge between understanding and speaking. You already have one side of the bridge. Now you need to strengthen the connection. And you do that one sentence at a time, one expression at a time, one conversation at a time. The first step is to stop thinking, I don't know English. Maybe the real problem is, I know more English than I can currently use. That is a completely different situation. If you do not know English, you need to learn. But if you understand English and struggle to speak, you need to activate what you already know. And activation requires practice. Let's say you understand the word comfortable. You hear it in a video and know what it means, but you never use it. Later someone asks, do you feel comfortable speaking English? You may answer, yes, I feel good. Now imagine you had practiced. I feel comfortable here. I don't feel comfortable speaking in front of many people. I want to become more comfortable speaking English. Now the word becomes easier to find. You have not simply learned the word. You have practiced retrieving it. And retrieval is extremely important for speaking. So listen to English. Understand English. Then use English. Hear an expression and create your own sentence with it. Read a useful phrase and say it aloud. Watch someone explain an idea and then explain the same idea in your own words. This is how English moves from recognition to active use. Now let's talk about translation. Many learners think in their native language first. They create a sentence in their mind and then translate it into English. For example, someone asks, "What did you do yesterday?" You create the entire sentence in your native language. Then you translate it. Then you search for the grammar and vocabulary. This makes speaking slow. The goal is not to suddenly stop using your native language. That is unrealistic. The goal is to gradually create direct connections between ideas and English. Start with simple thoughts. I'm tired. I'm hungry. I need to go. It's raining. I'm not sure. I have to work today. When you wake up, think, I'm awake. I need to get up. I'm still tired. When you are getting ready, I need to find my keys. I'm going to take a shower. I need to leave soon. When you are traveling, I'm waiting for the bus. The traffic is heavy. I'm almost there. These thoughts do not need to be complicated. Simple is better. You are training your brain to connect everyday experiences directly with English. Another powerful technique is speaking to yourself. You can describe what you are doing. I'm making coffee. I'm looking for my keys. I need to finish this work. You can describe what you see. There is a car outside. The sky is cloudy. Someone is walking down the street. You can talk about your plans and opinions. First, this may feel strange. But the purpose of practice is not to look impressive. The purpose is to train a skill. When you practice alone, you can experiment, repeat sentences, and make mistakes without pressure. This helps build confidence. Another useful technique is shadowing. Shadowing means listening to a person speaking English and repeating what they say. For example, I'm not sure what I'm going to do this weekend. You repeat the same sentence. You try to copy the pronunciation, rhythm, pauses, and intonation. Shadowing helps your mouth become familiar with English sounds. It also teaches you natural sentence patterns. For example, I'm not sure if. I was wondering if. Would you mind? Do you happen to know? Natural speakers often use familiar groups of words instead of building every sentence word by word. Expressions like, to be honest, at the moment, I'm not sure, it depends on, I'd rather, as far as I know. The thing is, these are ready-made pieces of language. Learning phrases can sometimes be more useful than memorizing isolated words. For example, instead of only learning the word decision, learn, make a decision, a difficult decision. I haven't made a decision yet. I need more time to make a decision. Now you have several useful patterns instead of only one word. This is how vocabulary becomes active. Repetition is also extremely important. If you learn a useful sentence today and never use it again, you may forget it. But if you repeat it several times over several days, it becomes easier to retrieve. For example, I've never thought about it that way before. Then create variations. I've never looked at it that way before. I've never considered that before. I never thought about that. The goal is not to repeat without thinking. The goal is to become familiar with the structure so that it becomes easier to use in real conversations. Now let's talk about mistakes. You will make mistakes. There is no way around it. Even native speakers forget words, change sentences, repeat themselves, and correct themselves. English learners often stop the entire conversation because of one small mistake. They say, I went to. Then they stop. Wait, is it went or go? They become nervous and start again. But the listener probably understands. Communication is not a test where every sentence must be perfect. If the other person understands your meaning, communication has already happened. You can say, let me try that again. What I mean is, let me explain that another way. You do not have to remain silent just because you forgot one word. You can describe the idea differently. For example, if you forget the word receipt, you can say, can I have the paper that shows what I bought? The sentence is longer, but the communication continues. Fluent speakers do not know every word. They know how to continue when they do not know a word. They describe. They explain. They use simpler words. They find another way. This is an important communication skill. You do not need to know every word in English to have a conversation. You need to know how to keep communicating. Now let's create a simple daily speaking routine. You do not need 5 hours every day. A consistent routine is more important. You could spend 30 minutes like this. First, listen to a short piece of natural English. Then, shadow it by repeating the sentences. Next, speak actively about a simple topic such as your day, your family, your work, your hometown, or your plans. Finally, reflect. Ask yourself, what did I want to say but could not say? What words did I need? What mistakes did I notice? Then write down only a few useful expressions and use them in your own sentences. If you do not have 30 minutes, start with 10. Even 5 minutes is better than nothing. 10 minutes every day can be more useful than 2 hours once a month. The most important thing is consistency. Now let's talk about confidence. Many people believe confidence must come before speaking. But confidence often comes from speaking. You become confident when you discover, I can survive a conversation. I can explain my ideas. I can make mistakes and continue. I can forget a word and find another way. At first you may speak for only 30 seconds, then 1 minute, then 3 minutes. Progress may feel slow, but every speaking experience makes the next one a little easier. Do not compare your beginning with someone else's years of practice. Compare yourself with your previous self. Can you understand more than you could 6 months ago? Can you speak for longer? Can you express more ideas? Can you recover more easily when you forget a word? These are signs of progress. Fluency is not only about speaking quickly. Fluency is also about continuing. It is about expressing your ideas, even when your English is not perfect. It is about staying in the conversation. It is about not giving up after one mistake. So remember the main message of this entire lesson. If you understand English but struggle to speak, it does not mean you are unintelligent. It does not mean you have no talent for languages. And it does not mean your years of listening and studying were wasted. Your understanding is valuable. Your vocabulary is valuable. Your grammar knowledge is valuable. You already have a foundation. Now you need to build the connection between understanding and expression. You need to give your English a voice. Remember, understanding English is passive. Speaking English is active. You need both. Listening gives you the language. Speaking teaches you how to use it. Reading gives you examples. Speaking helps you create your own examples. Studying gives you knowledge. Practice turns knowledge into ability. So from today, do not only ask yourself, what new English can I learn? Also ask, what English do I already know that I can use today? Take the English you already understand and bring it into your speech. Because every expression you activate becomes easier to use the next time. And gradually, the gap between understanding and speaking becomes smaller. One day, someone will ask you a question in English. And instead of freezing, you will answer. Maybe not perfectly. Maybe you will make a small mistake. Maybe you will pause. But you will answer. Then another question will come. And you will answer that one too. Slowly something will change. You will stop thinking, can I speak English? And start thinking, what do I want to say? That is a beautiful moment in language learning. Because your attention is no longer completely focused on grammar. You are thinking about your ideas, your opinions, your experiences, and your stories. English is not just a subject. It is not just a collection of grammar rules. It is a tool. A tool that allows you to connect with people, share your thoughts, travel, study, work, make friends, understand new ideas, and express the person you already are. So if you understand English but cannot speak easily yet, please do not give up. You may be closer than you think. You may already have much of the English you need. You simply need to start using it. Start with simple sentences. Start with familiar words. Start alone if necessary. Start with mistakes. Start before you feel ready. And keep going. The goal is not to become perfect overnight. The goal is to become a little more comfortable today than you were yesterday. A little faster. A little clearer. A little more confident. And after enough days of doing this, you will look back and realize that you have changed. The English that once stayed inside your understanding has slowly become part of your voice. So remember this. You do not have to know everything to speak. You do not have to speak perfectly to communicate. And you do not have to wait until you feel confident to begin. Begin now. Use what you know. Practice what you struggle with. Repeat what you want to remember. And give yourself permission to make mistakes. Because every time you speak, you train your brain to find English faster. Every time you continue after a mistake, you build confidence. Every time you express an idea, you become a more active English speaker. And one day you may suddenly realize, I understand English. And now I can speak it too. Thank you so much for spending this time with me and with Fexorg Fluency. I hope this lesson helped you understand why speaking English can feel difficult, even when you understand a lot. Remember, the solution is not to wait for perfect English. The solution is to start using the English you already have. Listen. Repeat. Think. Speak. Make mistakes. Try again. And keep improving one sentence at a time. If this lesson helped you, don't forget to subscribe to Fexorg Fluency for more simple, natural, and practical English lessons. Keep listening. Keep practicing. Keep speaking. And most importantly, don't be afraid to use your English. I'll see you in the next lesson.